Rory Mcilroy condemned abusive fans after Europe's Ryder Cup win, but when a beer struck his wife and the jeers turned personal, his own words crossed the line on live TV. Now, golf legend Paul Azinger is calling out McIlroy's "you can't do both" hypocrisy. Is the sports hero actually in the wrong? Or is this the moment golf lost its moral compass? What happened at Bethpage next shocked the world. Saturday at Bethpage Black, the Ryder Cup crowd pressed in, voices echoing off the fairway as the tension reached its breaking point. Rory Mcilroy, locked in a four-ball battle, stood over his approach shot, the scoreline tilting in Europe's favor, but the atmosphere anything but under control. Hecklers shouted from the gallery, their words cutting through the silence meant for golf's most crucial moments. McIlroy paused, gripped his club, and turned. Broadcast microphones caught every word as he snapped, "Shut the up." The expletive shot across the airwaves, unfiltered and raw, before McIlroy reset and struck one of the most important shots of the match. Within minutes, the clip exploded online. Sports networks replayed the outburst on loop, social media lit up with debate, and the Ryder Cup's usual decorum was suddenly the story. Fans argued over whether McIlroy's reaction was justified or a step too far. European supporters pointed to the relentless abuse he'd endured all weekend. American voices called it proof that even golf's icons could lose control in the heat of battle. The incident became the viral flashpoint of the tournament, overshadowing even the leaderboard. McIlroy's words, carried live to millions, shattered the sport's carefully maintained image of restraint. For a moment, the world saw not just a champion golfer, but a competitor pushed to his edge, fighting for respect in the most hostile of arenas. The decisive swing that followed helped seal Europe's march to a 15-13 victory, but the shockwaves from that single, mick-caught outburst would ripple far beyond the final score. A few holes after the viral outburst, the tension spilled from words to something far more personal. As Rory Mcilroy walked the rope line near the ninth green, his wife, Erica Stoll, stood with other European partners, bracing against a wall of noise. Suddenly, a plastic cup of beer arced out from the crowd, striking Erica on the shoulder before splattering across her jacket. The shock of the impact and the eruption of jeers turned a hostile afternoon into something menacing. European officials rushed to her side, and within minutes, New York State police officers closed ranks around the family area. Security presence doubled along the ropes, with more than 20 troopers stationed between the crowd and the players' loved ones. The incident rattled not only Erica, but the entire European camp. Shane Lowry's partner was targeted by crude chants. John Rahm's family huddled under umbrellas, trying to tune out the abuse. For the first time, Ryder Cup organizers considered halting play. The threat wasn't just verbal anymore. It was physical, unpredictable, and dangerously close to spiraling. McIlroy's demeanor changed after the beer was thrown. His focus narrowed, his jaw set. Between shots, he glanced toward Erica, checking that she was safe behind the police line. The rest of Team Europe took notice. Caddies and players formed a protective ring, guiding their families to more secure areas. The PGA of America responded with a formal apology after the tournament, promising written statements to McIlroy, Erica, and others who were targeted. But the damage was already done. For those inside the ropes, the Ryder Cup had shifted from a sporting contest to a test of personal boundaries. Erica Stoll, caught in the crossfire, became the face of a line that should never be crossed, reminding everyone that, for players, the cost of victory sometimes extends far beyond the scorecard. Rory Mcilroy stepped into the press room at Bethpage Black with the weight of the week visible on his face. The Ryder Cup trophy gleamed beside him, but the questions swirling in the air weren't about Europe's comeback or his clutch approach on Saturday. They centered on the chaos outside the ropes, the shouts, the thrown beer, and the line between passion and abuse. McIlroy didn't hesitate. He spoke with calm conviction, calling out the minority of fans whose behavior, in his words, had crossed the line. He drew a clear boundary. Families should always be off limits. Golf should be held to a higher standard than what was seen out there this week, he said, his voice steady but edged with frustration. The message was simple: support your team, but don't drag loved ones into the fray. There was no anger in his words, only disappointment and a plea for decency. He admitted he'd fired back at hecklers in the heat of battle, but made it clear the personal attacks and physical threats went beyond anything a competitor should accept. Being targeted that personally, you can only take so much, he explained, not as an excuse, but as a glimpse into the strain of the moment. For McIlroy, the real issue wasn't just about the noise or the pressure, it was about respect and the duty to protect those who never signed up for the spotlight. Within hours, the PGA of America responded. CEO Derek Sprague issued a formal apology to McIlroy, his wife Erica, and the entire European team. The statement condemned the abusive behavior, promised written follow-ups to those affected, and affirmed that golf's reputation depended on holding both fans and organizers accountable. The apology didn't erase the sting of the weekend, but it echoed McIlroy's call for higher standards. For a brief moment, the game's institutions stood with the player, reinforcing the idea that some lines are never meant to be crossed. Paul Azinger stood at the center of the storm, his words slicing through the golf world with the force of a tee shot at Bethpage Black. On Golf Channel and again on the Subpar podcast, Azinger didn't mince words. You can't say the fans need to behave better and then in the meantime lay them to waste. You can't do both. For Azinger, who captained the U.S. Ryder Cup team in 2008 and faced his own share of hecklers during the infamous War by the Shore, the contradiction was glaring. He didn't defend the crowd's behavior, but he refused to let McIlroy claim the moral high ground while firing back with language just as raw. Azinger's challenge wasn't just a soundbite, it was a gauntlet. The debate erupted across broadcasts and social feeds. Was McIlroy a victim forced to defend his family, or had he crossed the same line he condemned? Sponsors watched the fallout closely. Major backers like Rolex and BMW, already uneasy about the negative headlines, quietly pressed tournament organizers for assurances that player family safety would be non-negotiable in the future. Broadcasters, too, demanded on-air apologies and a shift in narrative to protect the sport's image. Then Tom Watson, the 8-time major winner and former U.S. captain, added his voice. "I was ashamed of what our fans did. That's not the game I grew up with. We owe Team Europe an apology," he wrote, echoing the official line from the PGA of America. The establishment circled around McIlroy and Team Europe, promising written apologies and vowing to restore respect. But Azinger's point hung in the air, unresolved. Can a player call for higher standards while breaking them in the heat of battle? The question refused to die, fueling talk shows and comment threads for days. In the court of public opinion, the line between victim and perpetrator blurred, leaving golf's moral compass spinning. At the 2025 Ryder Cup, Team Europe secured a 15-13 victory at Bethpage Black in what has since been documented as one of the most hostile atmospheres in event history. Broadcast footage confirmed Rory McIlroy's live mic outburst toward abusive fans, moments after a beer thrown from the crowd struck his wife, Erica Stahl. In the aftermath, McIlroy publicly condemned fan conduct and called for higher standards, while the PGA of America's CEO, Derek Sprague, issued formal apologies to Team Europe and their families. Yet, former U.S. captain Paul Azinger's critique, "You can't do both," sparked a debate about hypocrisy and sportsmanship that official statements could not resolve. To this day, it remains unclear whether McIlroy's reputation will be defined by his defense of family or undermined by his own words. What is certain, the 2025 Ryder Cup forced golf to confront its boundaries, leaving the sport and its fans to decide how far is too far.